Once upon a time there was a little, nice girl. She was sweet to everyone who only saw her. But she was the loveliest and dearest of all to her grandmother, who did not even know what to give her beloved granddaughter. Once she gave her a red velvet hat. And since this hat was very suitable for her, and she did not want to wear anything else, they began to call her Little Red Riding Hood. Once her mother asked to take a piece of cake and a bottle of wine to her grandmother. They say that she is both sick and weak, it will be good for her. She ordered my mother not to run away from the road, otherwise she would fall and break the bottle, and then grandmother would get nothing. And when she comes to her grandmother, so that she does not forget to say hello to her. Little Red Riding Hood obeyed, took the presents and set off. And my grandmother lived already behind the forest, half an hour walk from the village. And as soon as Little Red Riding Hood entered the forest, she met a wolf. The girl, however, did not know what kind of fierce beast it was, and was not in the least afraid of him. She greeted politely. The wolf also behaved very decently, so Little Red Riding Hood told the wolf that she was bringing gifts to her beloved grandmother. And while she was telling how to get to her grandmother's house, the wolf thought to himself how he could eat not only the old woman, but also a pretty girl. And then the wolf thought of showing Little Red Riding Hood a huge meadow with beautiful flowers. Little Red Riding Hood, as she looked at the many wonderful flowers, thought that it would be nice to bring grandmother a fresh bunch of flowers, because that would also please her. Yes, and ran away from the road to the side, and began to collect flowers. Slightly picking one flower, as the other beckons her, it is even better, and she will run after that. And so it went further and further into the depths of the forest. And the wolf ran straight to grandmother's house and knocked on the door. Grandma asked who was there. And the wolf replied in a thin voice that it was Little Red Riding Hood who brought the pie and wine. The old woman believed and ordered to press on the latch and enter. The wolf pressed the latch, the door flew open, and he ran to his grandmother's hut. He rushed to grandmother's bed and swallowed it at once. Then he put on his grandmother's dress and her cap on her head, went to bed and waited. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood ran and ran after flowers, and when she collected as many of them as she could carry, then she again remembered about her grandmother and went to her house. She was very surprised that the door was wide open, and when she entered the room, she called out to her grandmother. There was no answer. The granddaughter came up to the bed and saw grandmother was lying, and she had pulled her cap on her very nose, and it seemed so strange. Little Red Riding Hood asked with bewilderment why grandmother had such big ears. And the wolf answered in a grandmother's voice to hear better. Then Little Red Riding Hood asked why grandmother had such big eyes. To better see you, the wolf answered. And the arms are so big that it is easier to grip. And when Little Red Riding Hood saw the wolf's mouth and only asked why grandmother had such a nasty big mouth, the wolf pounced on her, screaming, "So I could eat you!" And how he jumped out from under the blanket and swallowed the poor girl. Having had enough in this way, the wolf again went to bed, fell asleep, and began to snore as much as he could. At that time a hunter was passing by the grandmother's house, heard snoring and wondered if something had happened to the old woman that she snored so. He entered the house, went to the bed and saw that the wolf was sleeping there. And he has been hunting this villain for a long time. He wanted to kill him with a gun, but it occurred to him that the wolf, perhaps, swallowed his grandmother and that she could still be saved. That is why he did not shoot, but opened his wolf's mouth wide, and saw a red cap flashed there. A girl jumped out of her mouth and said that her grandmother was still there. The hunter opened his wolf's mouth even wider, and the old grandmother somehow managed to get out behind the Red Riding Hood. They were delighted, began to hug and thank the hunter. They decided to teach a cunning wolf a lesson. They brought up large stones as soon as possible, stuffed them into the wolf's mouth and belly, and carried him out into the yard. And when the wolf woke up, he saw the hunter, and was about to escape, but could not bear the weight of the stones, and fell to the ground. This delighted all three, while the wolf got up and barely dragged its heavy belly into the dark forest. They never saw him again. This is how they taught the cunning wolf a lesson, and Little Red Riding Hood decided that she would never again disobey Mother's orders.
A little mouse lived in one forest. He was very cowardly, and he was afraid even of the noise of the wind. All the animals in the forest laughed at him. And then, one day, the little mouse gathered all his will into a fist, and went to the king of the jungle. The lion had just finished his dinner, and was dozing quietly in the shade, snoring loudly. The mouse approached him, and began to climb up the tail. All the animals were curious about what he was up to. The little mouse was very scared, but he tried very hard not to notice it. He climbed onto the back of the lion, and stood before his friends with an important look. And then the lion woke up. With one movement he threw the mouse to the ground and growled menacingly. All other animals were very excited. They thought that the lion was about to swallow the mouse. But instead, the lion asked what he was doing on his back. Gathering all his will into a fist, the mouse asked the king of the jungle to take him under his wing, so that he would not be afraid of anyone or anything else. Because he was the most cowardly animal in the forest. And in return he offered his help. The lion listened silently to the mouse. But he could not understand how a small mouse can help a large and strong lion. At first he laughed, and then with a loud roar chased the insolent man away. The mouse instantly ran away, glad that the lion would not eat him. All the other animals ran after him. Some time has passed. The lion got hungry and went hunting. But he did not notice the trap set by the hunters and fell into it. The king of beasts hung in the air, caught in a hunting net. He tried to get out of it, but could not do it. And since the lion was the king of the jungle, he could not bring himself to scream for help.
No.
Besides, hunters could hear him. The animals saw the lion, but no one dared to come close to him. And the lion decided to trust fate, doing nothing. Quite by chance, the same little mouse was nearby. Seeing the king of beasts in the nets, he decided to help him. The little mouse climbed up the long tail of the lion, and when it reached the net, began to gnaw at it. After some time, a whole crowd of animals gathered near the trap. It was interesting for everyone to watch what was happening. Suddenly, somewhere far away, the cry of the hunters was heard. The animals got very scared and fled into the forest. But the mouse continued to stubbornly gnaw at the net. Eventually, the net broke and the lion freed himself from it. Without thinking twice, the mouse climbed onto his back, and they ran away. When the lion got to his cave, he apologized to the mouse. And he said that he had underestimated such a small animal, deciding that it would not be of any use. And for the fact that the little mouse saved the life of the king of beasts, now he no longer needs to fear anything or anyone. From now on, the lion takes him under his wing. All the animals, watching what was happening, laughed and applauded the brave mouse. Since then, the lion and the mouse have become best friends, and peace has reigned in the forest forever.